Uber will now be regulated as a transport company and not essentially a tech company, which is what they were hoping for. This is a big blow to Uber. What does this actually mean?
Well, yeah, it's bad for Uber because it means more regulation, it means more sort of the potential that they could have to pay their drivers more, have more regulated rules around how they pay their drivers instead of being this sort of digital platform that's sort of super disconnected from the rules of local regulators. On the other hand, Uber's already regulated as a transportation company in London and Paris, two of its most profitable markets. So it's already started to deal with this, and Dara's stance has generally been, we're going to work with local regulators to sort of allow them to regulate us as they want. Obviously, we're going to have input. And so I think, this is bad, and Uber's lobbied against it, but the company's already started to pivot to deal with what they saw coming.
Frederic, as a longtime investor in Europe, what do you make of this decision, given the challenges that Uber is facing in London specifically, where you are?
No, it's interesting, and it's basically a confirmation that I think local regulators in Europe, but I think it's the case also across the globe, are looking at these tech companies and saying, actually, we have rules, and you've got to operate within the context of those rules. So in the short term, it doesn't change too much for Uber, because Uber had to operate within those parameters, but it does cap the potential upside. Now, the peer-to-peer service that they were hoping to launch across multiple countries, and in certain countries Uber was planning to enter just with peer-to-peer, that will not be possible. So that restricts the opportunity. And it's an interesting time, because as a user, and I keep on hearing this anecdotally, the Uber experience for consumers has over the past 4 to 6 months been diluted. Harder to get cars, drivers canceling. It's almost as if the change of guard and change of management and maybe the release of the pressure has had an impact at the level of the customer experience. So I think bringing new management that will sort of tighten the grip on the business again is highly needed. And in the short term, Uber has got to focus on its core.
So what signal do you think this sends from European regulators about the gig economy in general? I mean, there's this talk that it could also be affecting a company like Airbnb, in that it may be, in the future regulated more like a hotel than a home rental site, as they would prefer.
Yeah, I think there is a sort of general move and realization across Europe that many of the tech companies that are global, that have launched very successfully services that have become dominant across Europe, have done that by pushing maybe the boundaries too much, and also importantly not sort of paying their fair share of taxes. So I think it's fair to expect a tightening of the grip, and also realization by the local authorities that they do need to create a sort of a leveling playing field for the local operators as well, and force certain rules, but also certain fiscal sort of discipline on top of those companies who've been able to use Ireland as a place to do some invoicing, and we see that changing with Facebook as well. So we expect, at least on our side, we see a kind of wave of change, and there is demand from consumers, from politicians, from the local services and businesses to say, hey, maybe we've been too open. When you look at China, China's been very good at sort of closing those doors, and maybe it's time for Europe to do a little bit of that as well.